to make a difference in how they may experience this year. So I give thanks for the fact that Ari and Ben almost never say no to me. And so when I said, come, they said, okay, let's do it. So I invite you to come on up and share it. Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry, I haven't seen him since last night. So Ben woke up early to drop Becky and Al off at the airport, so I didn't see him. Thank you. When Emily first asked us to share, she said faith sharing, so I'm going to share faith today. It's a little bit of a testimony. And Ben, being the ever practical person that he is, he said, well, people are going to ask all kinds of questions like, what are you going to be doing? Where are you staying? Blah, blah, blah. So he's going to do a little bit of the factual report as well. So part one, part two. Okay. So when Emily first asked to share faith with regard to our mission year and how it came about and how I have been led by the Holy Spirit to come to this point, it immediately brought to mind kind of two watershed moments in my life. So I'm going to share those with you. So many of you know I'm Korean American. Well, Korean really technically, because I wasn't born in this country, but I've been naturalized and I came when I was 11. So one of my complaints against God, I mean, I'd say complaint in quotation, but it was kind of a matter that I felt was a negative in my life, was a series of displacements or feeling, as a result, feeling like I didn't have my people. I didn't belong anywhere because I came at an age where I was probably, my language and my kind of cultural identity was pretty established as a Korean person. And yet I got placed in a community where there weren't very many Koreans. So I always felt a little isolated and I came from a very traditional, conservative, Presbyterian background. I'm a pastor's kid, so. And it has its own set of cultural identities, and because as many of you know, I went to a arts high school, which was very liberal and very progressive and very, I would say actually pretty openly anti-established religion. So in that way, I felt very isolated because I belonged to neither. It felt like. I went to college, and that's the time when you kind of seek out for yourself, what are you about, what are you going to be about, what your identity, where you belong in the world, what are you going to do about it, and what are you going to do in life, right? So you struggle with that, and I joined, I took my faith very seriously, so I joined a campus Bible study with which I was very heavily involved in, but it was a very evangelical and very conservative group, and I kind of had a feeling like, my friends seemed very gung-ho for their faith, but I wonder how they would survive if they were bloop off out of their community into some other place, because that's how I always felt a little bit marooned, because my artistic community, with whom I had a very deep connection to, was very antithetical in many ways to my faith community. And so in a lot of ways, this was a point in my life where I felt like, where do I belong? Where is home for me? Where are my people that I feel I truly belong to? And this, I lived with it, and maybe I just have to be resigned to it, and that's my life. So in all my seeking and struggling and reading and all of that and struggling with God, I went to seminary because I was like, what is my identity as a musician and a Christian and Korean and American about? How does God want me to do, what does God want me to do with this? So I went to seminary to figure all this out. And while I was there, as many of you know, in 1997, so you can all guess how old I am, because I was in grad school then. I got an opportunity to go to Uganda for the first time, and the winter before that, I had gone to the Urbana World Mission Conference in Champaign, Illinois, and I picked up a bunch of books, and one of the books was called Compassion, and it's by 3 authors, one of whom was Henry Nauman, who was a professor at Yale Divinity School, where I went to school. So I picked it up, and lo and behold, I'm in Uganda, I'm all lonely, and I'm feeling like, oh, this is so interesting. There's a whole bunch of Korean missionaries from Korea, and there's a whole bunch of Africans, and I belong to neither. So here I was in the same predicament, kind of, sort of. And I caught malaria. So I was really sick because I was dumb enough, not inexperienced enough, not to realize that I had malaria symptoms, so I didn't tell anybody. And so I was really, really, really sick, like stage 3, stage 4 is you're dead. So, so it took a long time to recover. So I read my Bible, I read the Compassion book, cover to cover many times over, and I read the entire volume of Shakespeare plays because that was the only English literature they had in the library. But anyway, while I was reading the book Compassion, it's actually based on the Philippians passage we read this morning about following Jesus, following the way of Jesus, which is that Jesus displaced himself voluntarily. And that really it was one of those bing, or, like you see these pictures where you have the light of, light is shining and you're like, oh, I get it now, is that kind of thing, because I realized that because I was neither here nor there, that I had the ability to kind of adjust and culturally kind of jump from one to the other. I mean, this was long before intercultural anything. So, and I was in my 20s, and I was like, wow, God is actually using something that was very painful for me, very difficult, a point of trauma in my life, for good, for the purpose of God. I mean, it was like, and I realized this is a call for me. And one of the calls was that the Jesus life that I'm called to follow, in some ways we're all called to follow, is a missional life of voluntary displacement. So I say this to you also, not just as my own story, but I want you to think of yourselves as missionaries. And that if we all have experiences of not belonging or displacement in our lives. I mean, think about it. Like, whenever there's a new transition, for example, I'm thinking already what's immediately in my mind is my parents. They're experiencing a kind of displacement because they're entering an age where they have health challenges and they can't do the things they used to be able to take for granted anymore. Their identity is shifting, their role in the lives of us, lives of their friends, lives and in society is changing, and it's very difficult, it's challenging. Whenever you move to a new school, Cloud is going to move to a new state altogether, go to college, out of college. Any kind of new situation where you are plucked out of the familiar into the unfamiliar is a displacement. But instead of thinking, how did I end up here? Think, I am sent with a purpose, right? Romans 8:28, which is another one of those seminal things, is easy to misunderstand, misinterpret. Let me read that again. Let me see. Sorry, I need reading glasses because I'm old now. Okay. No, it's okay. I can do this. We know that all things work together for the good of those who love God, who are called according to his purpose or her purpose. I think it's easy to say, it's all going to work out. It's all good. But actually, it's a little more directed and specific than that. All things good and bad in our lives work for the good of those who have been called according to God's purpose. So I invite you to kind of reflect, you've all been called. You are missionaries. You're missionaries in your places. I would encourage all of us to think, how did God call me to be in this specific moment, in this specific situation in my life? Because if you have been called according to God's purpose, which is what we sang about, for everyone born, that what is my role in this scheme of things, and how does God want me to respond? That's a missionary's attitude in all things, and this has been my understanding also with you. I came in 2001, and I stayed, and my mindset has been, God has sent me to you. I'm a missionary, and you guys all have been sent to this community, and you are missionaries. What is my role? As God sent missionaries. And in wherever you may go, God has sent you there, and what is your mission? And what is my role? And how are all these situations going to work for God's purpose? So this is something that I wanted to share with you, and praise be to God. Part 2.
So Ari and I are very different people. It makes us a great pair. I remember at our wedding, Donna says, "What goes together? Ben?" And someone said, "Ben and Jerry." No, it's Ben and Ari. Anyways, so yes, we're very different people. So actually reminding of this story about how she's been on this adventure, and okay, that's not me if you know me. All right, she's lived in over 30 different addresses in her life, and overseas, in the East Coast, LA. Many of you know that I just built a house, but in the previous place that I lived in, I've been there for 18 years, so that's quite different. So, and I think at least half of you in this room have probably known me ever since I was the size of the babies back there, and so you know that I just kind of put one foot in front of the other. That's just who I am. I don't know why that is, but I can see a path and I just take it, and I don't think, oh, let's go over there. Oh, no, that's crazy, that's dangerous. So, when people hear that I am going to Uganda for a year, people are like, what the world is going on? I mean, they know obviously that I'm in the story at some point, right? We were married in 2006, and even a couple years before that, I became introduced to Uganda and what's going on there, and slowly, becoming familiar and visiting a few times. So I've been there 3 times already, but still, people are still shocked, and so. Whenever people get together or they hear about this, the first thing they're going to start asking a lot of questions. We actually have been to 2 get-togethers so far for people who just wanted to talk about what's going on, and actually it was Pastor Derek that organized a get-together last night. So we saw a bunch of people that you probably know or are familiar with, and got together and started asking all these questions about what happened. Tell us all about this. So I don't have to repeat myself so many times. I know I've told the story a little bit to some people. I'll kind of try to give the overall summary of what the heck is going on and why did I make this decision. So, okay, the story, of course, it starts with Ari, even before we were married and going on the mission trips. Praise the Lord for all those who went on the mission trips. There will be more opportunities, I will let you know that. But Still, even during that time, I've just been working in Silicon Valley, putting one foot in front of the other and doing my thing up until about last year. So what happened last year? So I have a slide for this. Next slide. Okay, so I have this weird, yes, this is me. So I have a weird coincidence that happened, and I want to say it's August 18th. Yes. Well, that's one of the coincidences, actually. So it was the day before Ari's birthday. But I guess one of the major things that happened on the 18th was that I got notice of job termination after 12 years at Cisco. And I had never been laid off before, so it was kind of a surprise, but it turns out the layoff was fairly widespread. It affected half of my group and large sections of other groups people that we worked with, and entire groups in Texas were just wiped out. Like, all 12 people just said, that's it, we're closing up. So it wasn't really just like me being picked out or something like that, but it was kind of radical. At big companies, they kind of, they cut a few people every year, but this was like a major thing that just kind of shifted, and everyone was like, wow, what's going on? And it turns out that after the layoff happened, a lot of people who remained in my group, who were not laid off, decided, well, that's enough. Everything's different, we're leaving anyways. So in some ways, I'm the lucky guy because I got the severance package, and they just quit on their own, they got nothing. So everything's different in the industry. In fact, I talked to someone yesterday that recently said, oh, that was a good time to leave because everything's changing. These other companies are just totally getting rid of their teams. And so I'm like, wow, okay. So there's, even 1 year later, I'm seeing interesting coincidence. Okay, so that was the one thing that happened. And on the 18th, when you get notification, you actually don't have to do anything. Starting that very minute, you can drop everything. You're not obligated to do everything. I still get paid for another month, and there's stuff beyond that. But I literally could just pack up my stuff and disappear, and that's what they expect. So it's fine. So that was number one. The second thing, as I alluded to earlier, many of you know I started to build a house, and that was a project that started in 2014. And I had lived in the same place before then for 18 years, or 17 years at that time. And I said, oh, let's just do that. That's kind of a little project, and it's still in San Jose. Everything would be normal. But boy, it took a long time. It took a lot of money. For any of you who have done construction projects or home renovation, this is way worse than that, right? This is a year in planning and permitting and architecting, and then the second year is all construction. So that goes on and on. Actually thankful for Ari for helping with a lot of that, because I was working during that time, so she had to pick a lot of the stuff. So people ask us all about that, and so as a series of permits, and we've been waiting and waiting until we can finally move in, because you can't just move in when it's under construction, especially for something that's brand new. You can't even you're not even supposed to bring your stuff and put it in the garage. You say, you're just not allowed to do anything. You can't occupy it at all. So in order to get the occupancy permit, you have to get final inspection. So you're final, right? So we've been waiting and waiting and waiting. Of course, oh, maybe it'll happen next month, and the inspector says, oh, this and that, so okay. You keep going. So finally, we get the final inspection, August 18th, right? So what's going on? That's an amazing thing, right? You go, I can't believe it. That's not the only thing, because at the same time, to fund the house renovation, I have been trying to get a line of credit. It's kind of like a mortgage, but same type of procedure. And I had started that probably 5 months previous, and that had been going on and on and on. And they need more papers, and of course, if rates are dropping, people are always doing this, getting approval. So it's taking a long time, and literally on that day, I got the notice on the 18th that I'm going to get approved, and that it's going to happen that weekend. It didn't actually happen until Monday, but it happened that weekend. And I said, wow, that's an amazing thing too, because if you're trying to qualify for a mortgage or a line of credit, you do need to have income, right? So that's kind of weird that on the day that I know that I'm going to lose my job, they agree to give me a loan. And I'm like, this is crazy. So I pulled one over on the bank. So it all went through, right? Technically, I was employed for another month beyond that, so it's all above board, but just kind of knowing that, it's like, okay, well, I borrowed all the money, I don't have a job now. So that was a very interesting coincidence, those three things. And And then it was Ari's birthday, and I can't remember, there was probably something, I knew there was one more thing that strange that happened, but all those things came together. On top of that, for some reason the previous year, I had been reading a lot of articles about, about how much does it take if you were to just stop working. Not because I wanted to, but because, at some point you just wanted to know, how long is it going to take? People wonder that. It's like, how many years is it going to take? So I started to read a lot about it. And at that, actually even before the 18th, probably a couple months ahead of time, I'd already concluded that it's not actually a problem for me. It's not going to be, I'm not going to go buy a fancy house and go on vacation every month, but it's actually not a problem for me to stop working. So if something like this happened, I would be okay. And then it happened, and I was like, oh, well, now the rubber meets the road. I have to make a decision. See, up to this point, I had never walked away from a job. I had always been employed, and in fact, I did change companies at one point because I had an opportunity, and I made the decision to go to another company. And those companies got subsumed by larger companies, right? You just kind of stay there, and again, I was moving one foot in front of the other. So there I am. This is the first time that is sort of an involuntary job loss. And so there I am going, wow, what do I do? And because Cisco doesn't require me to come in anymore, I actually rode my bike for like a week, just kind of to decompress and just say, wow, this is freedom. And of course, we were still finishing the house. Just because you get the final approval doesn't mean that everything's on. So it still went on for months after that, getting completely finished. So there was something to do, but in the meantime, I didn't have to think about work, which was definitely a new thing for me. I'm not a person who takes long vacations or even regular vacations. They allow you to, I go on family trips and people arrange things and I go, okay, we're going there, okay, I go. But I'm not the type of person that says, man, I want to go to Europe and then I plan a trip to Europe. I've never done that. I just sort of tag along with other people's things if it comes up, and so sometimes a family thing, okay, we have to go, of course I'm going to go. So my hours are piling up in the bank at work. I had probably banked about 6 weeks of vacation at the time. So of course I get that all back on the way out, but I'm just that type of person. So the week after August 18th, I'm just like, I don't know, I guess I'm just bumming around. It's like, wow, this is fun, and it just actually kind of felt joy. Oh, I confess. I felt a little bit happy that I didn't have to I could do whatever I want. I was sort of in control. And I thought, boy, I was just going to want to sit with that. Now, at the same time, my coworkers are asking me, they're in a different situation, right? They're like, oh no, we have to rush out and find a job. So they do. There's all sorts of connections. And within the month, they're already pulling me. They're like, oh yeah, you want to come over? There's a job for me to go. And I said, let's take a pause. Let's take a break and do something a little different, or maybe not do anything, right? So for the last year, I haven't been working. I've been doing a lot of stuff, but that's different than normal life. So that's actually something very different. That's a very unusual thing for me. I guess more along the lines of what Aries in her life is just, things blow different ways, and you go, wow, life is different. So I had a choice to continue putting one foot in front of the other, and I kind of decided not to. I think maybe it's just a time, and I saw this coincidence, and I'm like, okay, maybe I need to step back and not ignore this kind of a weird thing that happened. So that's one reason why I decided to not just go back to work or to go to the company with my former coworkers. And I said, okay, let's sit back and discern what's next for my life, because I could just keep on going forward, work for more money, and okay, so 5 or 10 years later, then I'll just have more money, and then okay, then what? So I said, let's try out not working, because I know a lot of people here have done that or have been experiencing that for the last 5, 10 years, whatever. I said, I want to find out. I want some practice. So I want to know what that's like. So what's next? That's still a question in my mind, but I don't really know. It's sort of open-ended for me, which is new and interesting, and I'm hoping that God's going to work with that. Hopefully I won't go back to this. I'm going to grip onto something that I know and is familiar, and my former life. I'm going to live with it for a little bit. So that's what caused this major shift. Otherwise, it would just be business as usual, I think. I would just be doing the same things I do here, and Ari would go for her month in Uganda, and that's how it works. So your prayers for me in discerning in what's coming next. And so the decision to go to Uganda, obviously, is a continuation of Ari's story, because we have a covenant relationship with this church. It's an opportunity for me to build more bridges, opportunity for me to just stop doing my normal life and something different and immersive and just totally not the U.S., right? Not Silicon Valley, not maybe not this church, right? And not the normal things I do, just to be something different and voluntarily displace myself. Unusual. Normally I would never do that, although I did do the church plan in Mountain View some years ago. But anyways, this is 10 times more than that. So, all right. So now the Q&A session that people are always asking about is, now that you've decided to go, well, first of all, where are you going? So let me go to the next slide. So where are you going? This is a common question I get. I'm hoping people here have a little bit better idea, because we try to say a lot, but sometimes we don't know. So we're going to start over from the beginning. Where do we fly into? We fly into Entebbe, Uganda, which is over by the water. It's the lowest left-hand little dot there, okay? That's really the only airport you're going to fly into in Uganda. So that's where we fly into and out of, okay? We're not staying there for a year. Okay, we're staying in the capital. Kampala is the capital, right? The airport's not Kampala. The airport's Entebbe. So the capital is Kampala. That's the little dot that's really close to it, but it's a little bit north. It's about a 30-minute bus ride. The road is fine, obviously. Airport to the capital, right? It's pretty good. So what's in Kampala? Kampala is RTC, which is this seminary that was founded by Koreans, I want to say in the 80s? Was it the 80s? So it's been around for a while.
They just celebrated their, 20th anniversary, so not 80s.
No, not 80s, so it was 90s.
So I participated in their first graduation.
And that was 97. Okay, so it was just getting off the ground. But people were there earlier, 94.
Missionaries had been there since the 80s.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking of. Okay, so the college itself, established in the 90s, that is a compound. I don't know how big it is. It's not that big. I would say it's probably about the size of a couple of city blocks here, maybe?
I'd say maybe 3 acres.
Okay. So it's not huge like, Cal or something like that. I don't know, maybe even Laney. Maybe it's the size of Laney. I don't know, something like that. And there's on-campus housing there for some of the staff, and then for people who are short-term missionaries. So we're actually considered short-term, believe it or not. 1 year is like that, is gone. And the people there have stayed their entire lives. The people who went there in the 90s raised their kids, right? Their kids went to school in Kenya and whatever. So we're short-termers. 1 year is nothing. So that's where we'll be staying. We've chosen something called the guest house, which is where Ari stays every year. It's been refurbished, and so I've stayed there before, but it's totally different now. They have a shower, hot water. It's like, wow, this is way better than before.
No worthy bucket baths.
Yeah, so I guess I've graduated, but from that. But anyways, so we'll be there we will be in the guest house in this 2-room thing for the entire year, pretty much. When you say, where are you staying? That's where we're staying. Kampala, RTC, on campus, Ari's doing teaching. I actually have no defined role. I am a floater. There's actually a computer science PhD who is from Korea and wants to do some computer training program. I guess pastors come to the school obviously for theological training, but they're also community leaders. They kind of need to know how to do all sorts of stuff in their community. So computer skills are something that's needed and wanted, and I think he's trying to start something there. So I'll assist him. It's not my idea. I'm just trying to amplify whatever he's doing. I don't really know anything about his classes, so we're trying to get a hold of of him and figure that out. So since Ari's going first, she'll figure it out, and then I can figure out what I'm supposed to do. So I'm still up in the air. I guess this is part of the adventure. Since I've decided to go, I don't even really know what I'm going to do, but I'll be there. Okay, Kampala, the year. Kumi. Okay, so everyone knows what Kumi is because the dinner is coming up, and of course that's where we do our fundraisers and bike rides, and many of you donated over the years. Praise the Lord, thank you. Yes, and people went there. So where's Kumi? It's the red dot. It's pretty far away. It takes a whole day really to get there. You get on a car or bus and you get problems, and that's Uganda. You just deal with it. Part of the adventure. Probably takes 5 hours if you're lucky, but probably not. So it's a whole day's trip. And of course, what's in Kumi is the school, Kumi Christian Visionary School. We plan to make a few visits there. Actually, Ari is going immediately when she arrives. She will actually just go to RTC, drop the stuff off, and arrange a bus ride probably Monday to try to go to find Silver. We haven't communicated with him for a while, so we're going to try to find Silver and try to get all these, see how he's doing and the school. But we'll visit other times besides that, because at RTC it's a college, so students go home on break, right? This is a semester and there's a winter break and so forth. So we'll have time. We'll have time to go visit Kumi because we want to build this bridge. It's a covenant relationship. And one of the things that I think I can accomplish while I'm there for a year, or we can accomplish something more than this. When we go for a mission trip, we may stay for a week or two once a year. So we'll get to go several times over the next year. So we're looking forward to that. All right, the second thing that people always ask is, what are you going to do? Okay, well, I kind of explained it already. So at RTC in Kampala, right, for the year, that's a picture of the campus, the gate. It's the front gate. I mean, it's way bigger than the picture. You can kind of see a cross in the back there. That's the chapel. That's where worship happens, and you do your band music training and some choral choir, stuff like that. So there's some of the stuff that Ari teaches, history, theory, musicianship. She'll preach some of the chapel services and help with worship leading and training. There's some other classrooms where she will conduct the class. We hear that there's only a few people enrolled in the music section because this campus teaches the theological, which is just the Bible training and stuff like that. So Ari's in the music department, which is much smaller, and there's apparently only a few people enrolled at the moment. So we're kind of praying that it would be more than that. It would be kind of weird to say, well, we went for a year and we got the staff there, and there's only 3 people to teach. Normally it's like a dozen, something like that. So anyways, we'll see what happens. And again, so there's the computer PhD guy that I'm gonna. That's sort of the first thing that I could latch onto while I'm there and see what they need and whose technology or computers need fixing. Maybe I can help it out. So that's me. All right. Do I have another one after that? I can't remember. Or was that the... right. Okay, so Kampala, Kumi, what are we going to do while we're in Kumi? Of course, we're going to meet with the board. Actually, who's on the board is Pastor, right? Pastor's on the board. Ari's on the board. I'm not on the board, actually. Silver, Churchill, and some other folks. So they meet maybe once a year if they're lucky. So we're going to try to meet at least once while we're there, just to get everyone together, and I know just for business purpose. So this is the time when we're here. Maybe they'll get excited. And so that is definitely a goal. Of course, we want to visit the school. As I said, Ari's going immediately to get a report, which we'll find at the benefit dinner. You'll hear about that.
The hottest news because of the immediate. This week.
Yeah. We don't know what will come back, but hopefully it's still there, right? And in fact, if you haven't seen a satellite photo, this is actually fairly recent because you can see in the upper, that upper left corner, that rectangular building, that's the girls' dorm. So that was built just a few years ago. And so now that's showing up. The kitchen is in the way top, the little small building. And of course, the main building is the letter U. So, of course, we will make progress there. And and try to organize a VIM trip next July. At least that's what the talk is. So if you want to go in July, or you know people who are interested, July is the date. Talk to, I think my mom is the one that's trying to coordinate all that, okay? So, and then of course try to set up more ways to communicate. So that's just a quick nutshell. I know that took a little bit longer than I expected, sorry. Yes, I am done.
So one of the things I want to kind of finish off with quickly, because we've taken too long, is that when I see Kumi Christian Visionary School, it always never ceases to amaze me, because I literally never imagined that this was within the scope of possibility. I mean, seriously. The resources, when you've seen the resources people have on the ground there, and then where I was at that point when I first heard the story of my life, was that, oh, that's not possible. Are you kidding me? It's like a pipe dream. And then what God did to just mobilize people, and in particular this community, is just like, ooh, gives me shivers just to think about it. So this kind of is always a story of miracles and story of like the fishes and loaves. Whatever you think you have, whatever you think you lack, don't let that deter. Don't let you be the block for God's dream. So please continue on. I want to encourage you, because we've all been part of this miraculous journey, and we've been privileged to participate in a work of miracles. I mean, seriously, year after year I go, the thing that I focus on is not so much the stats and stuff, but the children and the lives and people, for everyone born. This keeps ringing in my head, for everyone born. A star overhead, the right to dream, to have a life, for a future, to dream big, bigger than what we think is possible. And this is possible through God and through community. So this is what I want to encourage you with. And we were just in a meeting like this past week with our YCBM task force, Pastor Emily and Uncle Bird and Ben and I. And one of the things they ask is, what would you like CCUMC to do for you to support you? And well, Ben, being the very pragmatic person, said, well, there's nothing you can do it per se that would be particularly whatever. And I said, wait a minute, wait. Because there is no way we can do what we do unless you send us off and you are praying us up. And this is something that I've viscerally experienced every time I'm over there, is the power of prayers for my sending community, which is you. So please, I cannot overemphasize enough, we depend daily and moment by moment on your lifting us up in prayer. So I hope that you can, I hope that we hear our names lifted up in prayer for community prayer every Sunday. We're gone. Thank you.